What's going on, everybody? Red Zone Sports. We've got Thursday Night Showdown, and boy, do we have a wild one tonight. You would think that when you open up this slate and you look at this game, that like, oh yeah, this is a pretty straightforward game. I kind of know how to play this, but now we've got all of these injuries. Stephon Diggs is out. Nico Collins is out. We've got Alan Lazard out. We've got I think we know who the kicker is right now for the Jets. I think it's going to be Riley Patterson, but Legatron, he's out, who's been missing 500 different kicks, right? So we got a lot of different stuff going on. What it's done to the ownership is wild. I mean, it is all over the place. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players getting 10 to 20% ownership, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players getting 20% and above. I mean, it's just like, it's pretty crazy. So there's definitely some ways to play this tonight. I think I've got a pretty good beat on where I want to go with this. But let's just start at running back. Obviously, we've got Mixon and Hall. I think they're both big plays today. I definitely like Mixon at the captain a lot more than I like Hall, and I don't care that he's more expensive. The trepidation that I have with Hall is just that, like, they're legitimately giving Braylon Allen some carries. And now with Dameon Pierce hurt, there's literally nobody behind Mixon, okay? So, like, it's either Mixon, Daria Gumbawale, or J.J. Taylor. Those are your options at Texans running back right now. Now, if you want to tell yourself, hey, I'm going to play a little bit of Daria because, he comes in a little bit during passing downs, I don't think so. I've got interest in Breece Hall mainly at the flex tonight. The optimizer is kind of with me on that. He's a massive negative leverage, but it's all coming from his captain ownership. He's only popping up in the optimal about 10% of the time, but he's being owned about 20% at captain, which I think is pretty interesting. I think the Texans are going to win this game. I'd be very surprised if they don't. They have the vast superior defense, that's for sure. So that's kind of where I'm banking that off of. I also think this game is going to go over the total tonight. Just aren't very good. So Mixon is going to be my priority at captain, but I'm playing a lot of both of them just overall, right? Quarterback, obviously, we've got Stroud and Rodgers. I've got definitely some interest in some Stroud at captain because I do think that while they have Sauce Gardner, I definitely think that through the air is the way to attack him. And because all of the top receiving options aside from Dell are out, I think it makes a lot of sense when you tell yourself a story about how this game is going to go, where if the Texans win and Stroud throws 3 touchdowns, good luck, finding out where those 3 touchdowns are going to go, right? Stroud's not a big runner, neither is Rodgers. So Stroud can run like a little bit, but he just hasn't shown that really. But at the end of the day, I'm more interested in Mixon. This team has shown that they want to be a run-first team and play defense. So that's kind of, the main thing for me. But I've definitely got some interest in Stroud at captain, not so much Rodgers. I don't even know how much I'm looking to play Rodgers today. I think that the Jets do most of their points through kicking field goals, but I could be wrong there. I'll probably get to a little bit of Rodgers, but I'll probably right now he's coming in just about 36% owned. I'll probably be about even with the field, but I probably will not be playing any Rodgers at captain. I will have at least one Stroud captain lineup. Wide receiver is where everything gets really, really weird. You've got Devontae at 9,800. You've got Garrett Wilson. I much prefer Garrett Wilson in this spot to Devontae Adams, but I think he's more of a flex play than anything. He's getting more volume. Tank Dell at 9,200. I think he's fairly priced for the amount of volume that he's going to receive. And then from there is where it gets wild. You've got Xavier Hutchinson, Robert Woods, and John Mechie III as the receiving options for the Texans. Hutchinson's coming in about 10%, Woods about 14, and Mechie about 11. I know that everybody's talking about Mechie, and I know that he's a really good talent, and it definitely makes some sense to take some shots. But you can't play all three of these guys tonight. Or maybe that's your strategy. If you just want to, if you're going to play like 10 lineups and you're just going to play Hutchinson in one, Woods in another, and Mechie in the other, they're all about this. Hutchinson is the most expensive at 4,000, but you can kind of pick and choose between Woods and Mechie. But Hutchinson's at 4,000, Mechie's 28, Woods is at 3. So you can kind of pick and choose there. I don't have a good lean. Hutchinson was actually getting targets when Diggs was healthy, so that would, lead me to believe, and the pricing reflects that as well. He's probably a little bit more of a safe option. I think Robert Woods is kind of an interesting option, especially on a PPR site like DraftKings where you're going to get points for receptions. It's just how much are they going to need to pass, right? I just don't know. Right. For the Jets side, you've obviously got Adams and Wilson. Then you've got Mike Williams priced at 3,600, what I think is very, very fair. I definitely will be playing some Mike Williams now that Allen Lazard is out. And I think it's fair to get to some Xavier Gibson. You saw him catch a touchdown last weekend. With Allen Lazard out there, using him a little bit more in the short passing game. I think he's a guy that Rodgers likes quite a bit. He kind of fills that like Randall Cobb type role for the Jets, and at $1,200, out of all these guys, if you're asking me from Hutchinson to Gibson, which one I'd rather play the most, I would probably honestly rather just play Gibson the most. Now, the Sims don't like him as much. The Sims like Mike Williams or Xavier Hutchinson the most. It's just purely based on targets, but I like Gibson. He returns punts. Could see a punt return. Texans are very good on special teams, though, so I don't necessarily think that would be the case. Tight end, I think this is a great spot for Dalton Schultz. I also think this is a really good spot for Cade Stover. Bringing in at about 10% ownership, but at $1,600 with Diggs, once he went out, they started playing a lot more 12 personnel, and Stover is just on the field. Their offensive line's been banged up a little bit as well. So at 1,600, I think that Stover, who gets targets in the red zone, is a decent play. For Schultz, I think that he's more of a PPR type play, and I'm more than happy with playing a Schultz captain. He's priced up, so I don't think a lot of people are going to get there, but I think it's a fair price based on everything that's kind of going on the slate right now. Tyler Conklin, sure. I mean, I'll probably have him just in some, but really the conversation comes down to at that 5,800 price, right? Or I'm sorry, Conklin's 5,600. I would rather just play a kicker. Like I would rather play Kaimi Fairbairn at 5,200 than I would Conklin at 5,600. Again, Fairbairn, the kickers on the winning team and just kickers period on Showdown continue to just be flat out ignored. And I don't know why. Take it, for example, tonight. We've got an average ownership of 17% on Kaimi Fairbairn, and he's showing up in the optimal 39% of the time. All year, that is and guess what? Boswell and Joseph on the last Showdown slate were massive positive leverage. No one's playing them. You got to start playing your kickers. Like, it's not a thing that like I like to do, but on DraftKings and on these one game slates that these guys are going to be a certain percentage of the overall total, like you just can't argue with it, right? You see the Jets not do very well in the red zone. Rodgers throwing it around, all this bullshit. Now they're down another one of his favorite red zone targets, right? So, I mean, they're going to kick the ball. right? I've got this game at something like 24-20 or 24-17 Texans. Okay. So in that mode, that's at least, for the Jets side of things, let's say it's 17. Let's just say on the conservative side, that's 5 points. Like, how are all these other people down here guaranteed basically to get you 5 points? I don't know. Like the kickers just have such a high floor in it and at a low price and it's super low ownership. I don't know how you're not getting there, right? Patterson, 4,800, 20% owned. Like, how is Patterson being more owned than Jaime Fairbairn? Like, I don't get it. It's pretty wild. I'm going to play lineups with both of them. One of my favorite lineup constructions tonight is 2 running backs, 2 kickers, fill it out from there. I even did one where I alternated captain. So I did one with Mixon, one with Hall. If you want to play a kicker at captain, fine. Worked great for me. And the Steelers game the other night, almost took down a GPP playing kickers and kickers at captain. Like, you just got to do it. It's just at that point. For defenses, I don't have a ton of interest in defenses tonight. If I was to pick one, it's going to be the Texans defense at 4,600. Their pass rush is just fantastic. And the Rodgers is just a statue. He's just going to take some sacks, right? Like, I don't know how many turnovers that they're going to get, but Rodgers for sure going to take some sacks tonight. Okay. So let's look at some leverage spots. We talked about it a little bit. The highest leverage on the slate is Jaime Fairbairn right now. I got to think he's going to be higher than 17% owned. It doesn't really matter from a leverage perspective for me that what his ownership is. I'm going to be playing more than the field. I know that for a fact. But at 27% positive leverage, it's just crazy. CJ Stroud is actually carrying about a 14% positive leverage. Mixon's carrying 3% positive leverage. Hutchinson is 13.3. The Texans defense is showing up 10% more than they're being owned. Those are kind of the standouts. The negative, big ones on the negative side is Steven Sims at $600 is a negative 10% leverage. I don't think, I've built a few lineups before doing this. I don't think that you need to go all the way down to $600 to get Steven Sims. I think that I would much rather play Gibson. Some people, this is crazy. Like, JJ Taylor's getting 10% ownership. Malachi Corley's getting 10% ownership. Like, these guys haven't done anything all year, right? It's pretty wild. Some other big ones to Breece Hall is negative 12% ownership. That's mostly from the captain. He's not getting enough ownership overall, I don't think. And a lot of people are jamming, which a lot of people are going down. Garrett Wilson, negative 16% ownership. A lot of that is from the captain spot. Dalton Schultz is negative 6.5. Don't really care. I think he's one of my favorite plays tonight. Tank Dell, negative 4% ownership. Doesn't really matter too much to me there. I don't really, predicate who I'm playing off of that stuff, but it is interesting to see, that's where you can get different in spots. If you just are kind of in between a guy, the positive or negative leverage will really help you navigate that, in my opinion, where you can kind of figure out, okay, this is where I'm going to go because of this. Let me take a look at some of the custom lineups. Yeah, it's wild. The frequency amount of the custom lineups are all over the place. Normally, like when a guy is really heavily owned, like you can see, like he's just like, in like 35 out of the, however many lineups that are run here. But Tank Dell and Joe Mixon, CJ Stroud, Devontae Adams, Mike Williams. Mike Williams actually kind of an interesting captain. Utilizes all the salary, plays all the Jets wide receivers, and then Mixon and Fairbairn. Not going to be very dupe. It doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of dupes just because everything is so spread out. Like, this is one of those times where I'm looking and in the top. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be one of those weird nights tonight. So, like, if you've got a feeling about one of these guys, you just got to kind of trust your guts because a lot of the data isn't going to lead you there on nights like tonight, right? That's why I kind of like guys like Gibson who are maybe going to give me a shot to do something else in the kicking game or the special teams game, right? That's kind of why I like that. And that's also really why I like playing CJ Stroud at captain. He sims really, really well. It's one of the highest sim total averages playing him at captain, just because of what he's going to do. And in that game script, that means that everybody else is going to just be, everyone's basically going to have one touchdown, right? So if you take a look here, let me pull the one other thing up. Sim total average. Sort. So check this out. The lineup with the highest sim total average has Kaimi Fairbairn in the captain spot. Like, I'm for sure playing that. Let's see, one out of the top one. Let's see, we'll highlight these. 2, 3, 4. This is hilarious. This is what the Sim's putting out. So we've got, the top 11 lineups, highest simmed lineups, have Kaimi Fairbairn at the captain in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. I'm telling you, it's just gonna, unless some one person smashes, it's just gonna be one of those nights. Now it does have Rogers in here, which I think is kind of interesting, in some of the highest simmed lineups. But you can see Joe Mixon and the other ones. Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting night for sure. So, look, have fun. I'm using Run the Sims, and I'm building out, these are my own inputs. I actually have in the Texans winning 24-20, and that's the inputs that my sim is running off of. I didn't adjust anything other than that. I really only like to adjust in games like this where it's going to be spread out, just the total, and then going to go from there. But like, subscribe, follow. We really appreciate everybody. Shoot me a DM on Twitter. Just, shoot me a note on Twitter if you have any questions. Other than that, have a great night. Peace.